everybody, to our Ayurveda talk. I am Marie, and I'm an Ayurvedic health practitioner. And today we're going to talk about winter. So I will usually say winter is Vata season, but as winter progresses, it actually becomes Kapha as well. So I'm just going to read a little bit to you about what's going on, and then we're going to talk about the fact that it's really not the best time of the year to make a New Year's resolution. So we did talk about that briefly last week when we did our talk. Tina and I did it together. And we talked about this being a time of contemplation, going inward, looking at what do I need to release? What do I need to let go of? What's not working in my life? And that's really what it's about, like getting rid of what's not working. In fact, I was listening to somebody the other day talk about that, and they had made a lot of huge changes in their life. And they said that they didn't add more. What they did was remove. They actually stopped doing the things or let go of things that really weren't working. And so they just let those things go slowly, little by little. And so that's kind of the direction you want to start going, with January being the coldest time of the year for us in the Northern Hemisphere. So winter, think about what winter is like. That it's variable weather a lot of times. It's shorter days, so less sunshine, longer nights. And the weather is usually cold and damp and dry. Okay, unless you live in a tropical area. I grew up in San Jose. We had a lot more moisture there. And then when I visited my grandparents who lived in Sonoma County above San Francisco, it was even more moisture, but it was still cold and damp. And it was like cold to your bones, kind of cold. Whereas we're here in the mountains and it's dry. It gets dry. But anytime you have cold, you're going to have more of a tendency towards dryness. It is going to cause a heaviness, right? Because cold is constriction. Okay, cold closes things down. That's kapha. That's kapha, right? So in general, this season, fall, winter, the beginning is more Vata. But as we move more into the dead of winter, it becomes more Kapha, heavy, dense, cold, damp, hard to move, right? Stagnant, stuck. You might feel that in January. A lot of us do. So you will start thinking about having a little bit more of a Kapha pacifying life. Remember, Kapha is made up of the elements of water and earth, and you want to bring in the opposite. So if you're experiencing stagnation, feeling stuck, then that means you do need to start having more of a Kapha pacifying lifestyle. So a little bit more stimulation, movement, especially in the morning. If you are a Kapha individual, in other words, you were born, or you have a Kapha imbalance, you were born with more earth and water in your actual physical constitution, then you really, really need to get more stimulation, more activation and activity going. But remember, it's complicated. Ayurveda is so simple because it always boils down to the 5 elements, but then it's complex. So you also have to remember that this is a very difficult time for Vata individuals or people who have a Vata imbalance, because it can take Vata out of balance. Why? Well, because you have Vata qualities in winter. Air, wind, dry, cold. Those are all Vata qualities. Ether, air. I always try to tell people, think of the wind. What the wind does. We just had a big storm come through this last weekend, and the wind is insane. It'll move your house. It shakes things, right? The wind can be quite violent. So that would be Vata being pushed on, intensifying, and it's going to be causing like a feeling of chaos, too much movement, aggravation, right? And then what will happen is Vata gets unstable and they get chaotic, right? Vata can't sit still. Vata is all about movement, right? Wind, and it can't be contained. So you've got these two very distinct going on. They do share some qualities. The coldness, right? That's a similar quality that happens, right? Vata's light, Kapha's heavy. So if you've got a windy day, that's going to be more of that light Vata stuff going on. If it's a heavy, dense, cold day, damp, that's going to be more Kapha. So now we're starting to experience these crossover of these two different doshas that are moving into the environment. We're literally experiencing it. Remember, and I love it, and I always want to remind this of people, is that we have Western medicine doctors now saying things like, you're no different than the environment around you. Yay, finally. But what I will tell you is just because Western medicine confirms it doesn't mean that, oh, now it's for real. Because these ancient medicines of Ayurveda and Chinese medicine and this Siddhis, which is more southern India, they all have been practicing and understanding these energies and these elements for thousands of years. And so you can really rely on the information that you get from these ancient systems because they've been practicing them for thousands of years. They're tried and true. Okay, so just briefly, in the wintertime, you don't always need to get up early like you do in the summer, but you do want to get up and move. You need to move, right? Especially if you're dealing with the Kapha stuff. You want to make sure that you're paying a special attention to your daily routine and keep it consistent. Your daily routine in Ayurveda is extremely important, and it will really help support Vata, right? So if you're dealing with more chaos, you're not sleeping at night, you're feeling unsettled, you're having a hard time being still, that's Vata. So your nervous system is having a hard time getting regulated, that's all Vata. And that means that you need structure, stability, routine. So give that to yourself. Okay, doing postures that will support Vata and Kapha are going to be stabilizing and strengthening, building strength. Okay, Vata needs it because Vata tends to be unstable. So they need those strong postures to create stability. Kapha needs it because they need movement. So it's kind of nice. You could do both. If you are Kapha, though, the breath technique that you could do for a Kapha individual is the breath of fire. You don't want to do that if you're Vata. It's going to be overstimulating. But if you are dealing with stagnation, do the breath of fire. We'll talk about that, how to do that at another time. And then also right nostril breathing for Vata is very helpful. So right nostril breathing is going to promote circulation, right? And heat. So heat's good for Vata, and it will also be good for Kapha, right? Because they're both cold. They're both cold. Okay? Now, winter is, as we move into the dead of winter, it becomes more Kapha, heavy, dense. Okay? So you want to make sure that you are doing the opposite of what Kapha is. Make sure that you're having foods that are more warm. And if you're dealing with Vata, nourishing. If you're dealing with Kapha, warm and more pungent, right? That needs more stimulation, so it's good for that. And then there's lots and lots of suggestions that we don't have to go into detail about for how to really support yourself as we move deeper into winter, because we're moving towards Kapha. And then having like warm ginger tea throughout the day is going to be helpful. You can add a little bit of cinnamon because that's going to be stimulating. And that is going to help circulation, keeping you warm, and also prevent congestion, stagnation, right? That's a sure sign that you have stagnation and congested. Okay. making sure that you are dressing appropriately, especially for Vata people. Do not overexpose yourself to the environments, but having your feet in the ground is important. But warm, warm. I would also say go to the natural hot springs. Vata really, really gets lots of benefit from that. We have plenty of them here in the Reno, Sierra, Tahoe. We have lots of hot springs around us. And so go to those places where you can get in the ground and it's warm and it's really going to support Vata if you're dealing with Vata. Okay, making sure that you are making your biggest meal of the day, your lunchtime meal. Very important. And if you're dealing with Kapha, you want a Kapha reducing diet. If you're dealing with Vata, you want a Vata reducing diet. Okay, they're complete opposites. Okay, so that's why Ayurveda is simple, but yet it's complex. Okay, so now when you are thinking about your New Year's resolution, you want to be really journaling at this time because you want to start paying attention to, I feel really good about this in my life. I feel like, I'm in my truth when I'm doing this, or this feels hard. This feels difficult. And if you don't have to do something, don't do it. Start really looking at what can I slowly eliminate in my life that really isn't working. It's just not working. So look at those things and have those difficult conversations with yourself. And then, encourage what it takes to let a few things go. And start with simple things like go through your wardrobe. Let go of habits that you have. So work with yourself. Don't focus it in on your relationships necessarily, but focus on your little things that you can let go of first and then move from there. So I would start approaching your New Year's resolution as these are the things that I want in my life. So what's getting in the way and preventing me from having that? And start there. And then when you move towards spring, that is when you plant the seeds. That's when goals and intentions are set, your Samkalpa, in the spring to really bring in what you actually want. We're going to get rid of something so that we can plant the new seeds for what we really want. Getting really clear about what you need to let go of, because if you're carrying around a lot of baggage, you will not have space for more things, for new things. So we have to let go. We really do. It's part of life, you guys. It's part of life. Okay, so that is our talk for tonight. We're bringing in what's going on in winter. We're moving towards Kapha, stagnation, cold, damp, heavy. That's what's going to start happening. And now kind of slowly coming out of the Vata part of winter, right? You're starting to notice sometimes we're having more Kapha, sometimes we're having more Vata. There's both happening. They're both in the atmosphere. So pay attention to how it's impacting you. So let's get started with our practice today. We're going to do a practice that is both beneficial for the Vata and the Kapha as far as the stimulating part, but we are going to end it calming Vata, right? Because we really want to help stabilize Vata. So let's get started with that.